Hello, pretty people. We made it again. Hello, welcome, bienvenue, bienvenido. Afwan is thank you. Ahlan. Tamaman is absolutely. I think ahlan. So, bienvenido, ahlan, bienvenue. It's American Sign Language, I'm pretty sure. Well, it is presently like 10 degrees here and really terrible wind chills. Really terrible wind, very high winds today. So, the neighbor's screen door has been slamming all day because it doesn't actually hook, it just swings. Anyways, we made it till this day. Then you made it. We made it to another dose of D for the day. Daily dose of D. We love the innuendos and the play on words. Make a motherfucker think twice. My brain feels like a pile of mashed potatoes with absolutely no seasoning and no gravy and no butter. So we're doing all right. We're making it through, and we are trying to stick to tangible, easy, manageable chunk of goals. I'm really supposed to vacuum and clean the kitchen and the bathroom, like actually wipe shit down and vacuum the entire apartment, because I have not done that in a week. A little more than that, a lot more. I haven't done it since I moved in. And I've been really, really, really struggling to motivate myself to do it, because it's not like dirty, you know? It's just that like there's sock fuzz on the floor and cat hair, and it's not a lot, but it's enough. I really should do it. It has not been done yet. I've done like half wipe downs of the kitchen and the bathroom, but not like the full thing. Like I wiped off the counters in both of them over the past couple days. And I washed dishes. I'm not as clean as I've gotten. It's been rough. It's been rough. I'm cold and tired and sad because breakups suck. So I'm trying to be patient with myself. My therapist says it's self-compassion. We're trying to relearn what that is. Really great at being nice to compassionate and patient with other people. Me? Bitch, I know better. I need to practice being compassionate to myself, because I'm doing my best. I'm trying fucking hard. I'm doing great. Why do I hate myself so? Why am I hating on myself so much? Why do I think I'm not? Ha! This is not a therapy session. Thanks for the little vent sesh. Let's get us started. Oh, this all started because I was talking about manageable chunks, because I'm doing a chunk. I'm going to vacuum one room today. And if that means two, then we're just one. I'm gonna vacuum one room. That's a chunk. I'm gonna do my 1 hour of reading, because that's a chunk. And then we'll go to work. I broke up a fight on a Tuesday. In my previous years, when I used to work at a place called Banana Ants, figure it out. It was very common for there to be fights. I had been threatened with a knife, with a steak knife, because we didn't have wings. It was normal. The police were there all the time. It was, you just got used to it, right? Such is life. Nobody ever really got hurt. So you just kind of like, I mean, somebody did, but like none of our staff usually did. And if there was a fight, everyone backed them up. Like it's a different story. Anyways, I used to be very used to that. And as a tall human being and as a white woman with the privileges that an appearing white woman with the privileges that all that holds and I would frequently end up in the middle of things because I make people think twice. The body's kind of tall, so I cut off your line of sight, and society has trained us. So, de-escalation tactics. And that's not saying that like people won't hit a white woman. That's not true. I'm saying that society teaches us how to react to certain bodies, and I don't know, recognizing that I get a second glance, I get a second thought, is not me thinking that, oh, I'm invincible. It's just me recognizing the privilege that I hold in this body that I carry around. So, we use it to our advantage on occasion. Absolutely, especially if it's in like the safety measures of making sure that people don't get hurt. Especially people I like care about. Yada yada, da da da. Throw the hate at me if you like. If I'm misunderstanding this, send me some reading materials and I'll educate myself, or I'll look up some reading materials and educate myself anyways. Everything's always a conversation, right? I'm here for humanity. That's it. Wow, this is turning into way more of a spiel. Anyways, I've been out of that scene for, I used this to my brain got off track. So because of all of these factors put together, I'd frequently break up fights. I'd be the one to be in the middle. I wouldn't call the cops or anything. I'd just be in the middle and I'd look at people and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are we doing this? Can we stop? Why are we over chicken nuggets? Over some chicken tenders and fries? Okay, it's a burger, it's wings. Can we stop? And just go on like that. Throws people off. Usually de-escalates. I wonder if you can hear that. That's the wind. It's like, Alexa, how fast are the winds right now?
Currently, it's breezy at 9 miles per hour. Tonight, expect moderate winds around 15 miles per hour.
Oh, that's not bad at all. I'm capping. I'm also really grateful it didn't say the location because I realized after the fact and I was like, I'm not trying to dox myself like that. I have not worked at Banana Ants in a very, very long time, been a few years. And I'm still in the same field at a slightly nicer establishment. It's a lot more cordial. It's also not in the boroughs, so less of a population, and we all know that also makes it a lot whiter, and so there's a lot of polite culture and yada 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 yada. Anyways, we're really delving into this stereotype shit. It's great. Long story short, I haven't had to do this in a very long time. I have not been in this situation. Shit is very, very calm. This is so easy. It's so easy on my mental and my nervous system. It is not hard shit. And then I picked up a shift. I just picked one up. Why not? And I'm keeping to myself and I'm doing my shit as I do. And I'm doing my side work that I have to do. And I'm in the kitchen. And people keep coming in and telling me things like, oh, there's this girl that's kind of upset at the one table. Oh, she just yelled at our bartender, came in the kitchen. I'm like, how did I miss this? I must have circled out at that point and like not been in the kitchen when that happened. Anyways, I'm back in the kitchen. I've been in the kitchen for like 5 minutes. I was cut. And my two tables both had their food and were eating. So I was like, I actually have 5 minutes right now to get my side work done. So I'm in the kitchen doing side work for a solid like 5-8 minutes. Somebody comes in it starts talking to me, and the shit's still going on. And I haven't been out for a minute. And I can hear like things are kind of loud outside, but like, it's a restaurant, things are always kind of loud outside. The server is clearly very frustrated and tired. Rightfully so. It's been a hell of a night. She asked me if I can run some mac and cheese to a table. I got you. It's mac and cheese. She wants a break. No stress. I take the mac and cheese. I gotta pick up a water pitcher at one of the computer stations. And I walk out the kitchen and I turn the corner. And there is a customer with an A1 bottle in her hand. And two of our servers. And my brain just goes, oh fuck. And I put the mac and cheese down. I put myself in between the two of them. I put my hands up like this to put space between me and the chickadee, because chickadee's got a whole A1 bottle. One of the other servers managed to get the A1 bottle out of her hand. I think I told somebody to back up. Because I was putting space, because we were not doing this. I was not, my brain was like, oh fuck, no. I don't like this. This is work. I don't like doing this. Calm it down. Everybody, we can talk about this. This is food. This is not this serious. We get the situation calmed down, blah, da, 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 da. The customer leaves. The manager starts to take care of it. So I pick up the mac and cheese and I go to the table that I'm supposed to drop it off to. Drop off their mac and cheese, start refilling the water. I'm like, are y'all doing okay? Because, like, this is not common when you go out to eat here at all. At all. Everyone just starts laughing and it's like, are you okay? Because I always forget how many people, like, don't step in. Don't do things to help. You just watch. And so to me, that felt like the most natural response, because I'm sorry, you want me to sit and watch as people that I know get clubbed with an A1 bottle? No, I can't. Like, you want me to watch? And then I realized that no, like, people do. We are a watching culture. Anyways, it was weird. It was weird how fast my brain, like, I didn't even realize that I'd actually set the mac and cheese down until, like, the customer had left and I, like, turned around and was like, fuck, what was I doing? And I just see a bowl of mac and cheese placed perfectly in the center of a table so that it didn't get spilled. I don't really remember setting it down. I remember my arm going down a little bit and then coming back up, but I didn't, like, I forgot I was carrying mac and cheese. It was like 3 feet in front of me, less than that. Like, I crossed it in like 2 strides, not even 1 stride. Wild. Oh, and apparently it was all over liquor. It was because somebody wanted more liquor. This is why I don't drink like that no more. People are stupid on liquor. People are stupid on drink. Give me a J all day. Anyways, we have wasted. That was a lovely story time. Yeah, we're gonna leave it. We're gonna keep it kind of short today then, I guess. We're gonna skip some of that Abrahamic Sebastian Brandt shit because homie shook me last time and I'm not there for it anymore. So we're gonna read a little bit out of the Rumi collection, edited by Kabir Helminski from the Shambhala Library. So the Rumi collection, an anthology of translations of Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. Selected and edited by Kabir Helminski, with an introduction by Andrew Harvey. Shambhala, Boulder, 2005. I'm just gonna pick. Okay. We're gonna read this. Eating poetry. My poems resemble the bread of Egypt. One night passes over it, and you can't eat it anymore. So gobble them down now, while they're still fresh, before the dust of the world settles on them. Where a poem belongs is here, in the warmth of the chest. Out in the world it dies of cold. You've seen a fish, put him on dry land. He quivers for a few minutes, and then is still. And even if you eat my poems while they're still fresh, you still have to bring forward many images yourself. Actually, friend, what you're eating is your own imagination. These are not just a bunch of old proverbs. Subtle degrees. Subtle degrees of domination and servitude are what you know as love. But love is different. It arrives complete, just there, like the moon in the window, like the sun of neither east nor west, nor of any place. When that sun arrives, east and west arrive. Desire only that of which you have no hope. Seek only that of which you have no clue. Love is the sea of not being, and there intellect drowns. This is not the Oxus River, or some little creek. This is the shoreless sea. Here swimming ends, always in drowning. A journey to the sea is horses and fodder and contrivance. But at land's end, the footsteps vanish. You lift up your robe so as not to wet the hem. Come, drown in the sea 1,000 times. The moon passes over the ocean of non-being. Droplets of spray tear loose and fall back on the cresting waves. 1,000,000 galaxies are a little scum on that shoreless sea. Like this. If anyone asks you about the Horus of Paradise, Hourus of Paradise, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Houris, Horus, Hourus. Unveil yourself. When they speak to you of the moon, rise over the roof. If they ask, what is a peri? Show them your face. When they wonder about musk, scatter your tresses. What is it like when the clouds open up before the moon? Like this, tell them, and button, undo your robe. How was it that the Messiah brought life to the dead, they ask. Come, kiss me on the lips and show them. I told the secret of my union with the friend to no one but the east wind. Till at last, in its mysterious purity, it too whispered, like this. I asked, how can the fragrance of a Yusuf be wafted from city to city? Then God blew a perfume from the world of essences and showed me. How can the scent of a Yusuf open my eyes? The breeze touched my face with light and said, like this. I am a court of angels, my breast an expanse of azure. Come, lift up your eyes and gaze on heaven and say yes. Like this. This is gonna be disjointed, and that's okay. I'm gonna go grab water. No. Something. It's cold and I don't care that I'm a grandma. Alright. On to the next one. On to the next one. We are going to stick with our cooking because I'm trying to make more food for myself. Fucked up rice. Rice on an electric stove sucks. It just, oh my god. How do you do it? How do you do it? I suck at it. I suck so bad at it. It's stupid. It was the most overcooked, undercooked rice I have ever made in my life since I was a child. The center was still crunchy as if it was absolutely had not touched water, and the rest of it was melded together in a mush. So bad. I'm just gonna get a rice cooker. I used to be able to fucking make rice. Give me a gas stove. An electric one? Bro. Maintains temperature. What? Stupid. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. Mastering the Elements of Good Cooking. And Art by Wendy McNaughton, with a foreword by Michael Pollan. Tender cakes. We're still in the fat section. For years, I was disappointed by almost every single cake I tasted, whether I'd baked it myself or ordered it in a restaurant or bakery. I dreamed of a cake that was moist yet flavorful. So many cakes were one or the other. Store-bought cake mixes yielded the texture I was after, but were relatively flavorless. And cakes from fancy patisseries were rich in flavor, but often dry or dense. I figured it was an either-or situation, and I resigned myself to it. Then I tasted a chocolate birthday cake so moist and rich that I nearly fainted from delight. For days that slice of cake haunted me, so I begged my friend for the recipe. She called it chocolate midnight cake for how darkly rich it was, and when she shared the recipe, I noticed it was made with oil and water rather than butter. When I tasted the fresh ginger and molasses cake at Chez Pani for the first time a few months later, I was stunned by its perfectly moist texture and deep spicy flavor. I begged for its recipe too, and noticed that it was eerily similar to my friend's. There was something to these oil cakes. I flipped through my mental recipe box and realized that many of my favorite cakes, including classic carrot cake and olive oil cake, are made with oil instead of butter. Even cake mixes, which produce the ideal texture I've been trying to emulate, direct you to add oil. What is it about oil that yields such moist cakes? Science holds the answer. Oil efficiently coats flour proteins and prevents strong gluten networks from forming, much like soft butter does in shortbread. Gluten development requires water, so this oil barrier significantly inhibits gluten formation, leading to a tender rather than chewy texture. As an added bonus, less gluten means more water in the batter and ultimately a moister cake. Once I discovered the secrets of oil cake, I could anticipate the qualities of a particular cake without even trying the recipe. If oil was listed among the ingredients, I knew the recipe would yield the signature moist texture I loved so much. But there were times I craved a buttery cake too. Rich flavor, rather than a moist texture, took priority in cakes I wanted to enjoy in the afternoon with a cup of tea, or serve to friends at brunch. Emboldened by my discoveries about texture, I began to wonder if I could make a better butter cake. The answer lay not in treating butter like oil and melting it, but rather in capitalizing on butter's incredible capacity for lightness. Light. Lightness might not be the first quality you associate with fat, but its remarkable capacity to entrap air when whipped allows it to act as a leavening or raising agent in cakes and transform liquid cream into billowy clouds. Some classic cakes have no chemical leavening. That is baking soda or baking powder, and rely entirely on whipped fat for their cloud-like structure. In pound cake, whipped butter and eggs do all the work of leavening. In genouille, G-E with an accent, N-O-I-S-E, a type of sponge cake, whipped eggs whose fatty yolks entrap the air and protein-rich whites surround air pockets, allow the cake to rise. This is the only leavener. There is no baking powder, no baking soda, no yeast, and not even a creamed butter to help this cake rise. It is miraculous. I'm gonna pause. All right, where did the bookmark? Mark. We're gonna read from Slavoj Zizek, Heaven and Disorder. Whatever. Distracted brain thoughts. Apologies. Chapter 23. Heaven in Disorder by Slavoj Zizek. Chapter 23. The Great Reset? Yes, please, but a real one. Back in April 2020, reacting to the COVID-19 outbreak, Jürgen Habermas pointed out that, quote, existential uncertainty is now spreading globally and simultaneously in the minds of media networked individuals themselves, end quote. He wrote, quote, there never was so much knowing about our not knowing and about the constraint to act and live in uncertainty, end quote. And he was right to claim that this not knowing not only concerns the pandemic itself, we at least have experts there, but even more its economic, social, and psychic consequences. Note his precise formulation. It is not simply that we don't know what goes on, but that we know that we don't know. And this not knowing is itself a social fact, inscribed into the ways that our institutions act. We now know that in, say, medieval times or early modernity, people knew much less, but they didn't know this because they relied on some stable ideological foundation which guaranteed that our universe is a meaningful totality. The same holds for some visions of communism, even for Fukuyama's idea of the end of history. They all assumed to know where history was moving. Habermas was also right to locate the uncertainty in, quote, the minds of media networked individuals. Networked. Whatever, I don't actually know. I don't know the correct pronunciation. Is there a correct What is correct pronunciation? Our link to the wired universe tremendously expands our knowledge, but at the same time it throws us into radical uncertainty. Have we been hacked? Who controls our access? Is what we read fake news? The ongoing discoveries about foreign hacking of US government institutions and big companies exemplify this uncertainty. Americans are now discovering that they cannot even determine the scope and methods of the hacking taking place. For the US, the viral threat is not only a biological one, but also digital. When we try to guess what our societies will look like after the pandemic is over, the trap to avoid is futurology, which by definition ignores our not knowing. Futurology is defined as a systematic forecasting of the future which extrapolates from the present trends in society, and therein resides the problem. What futurology doesn't take into account are historical, quote, miracles, radical breaks that can only be explained retroactively once they happen. We should perhaps mobilize here the distinction that works in French between futur and avenir. Futur is whatever will come after the present, while avenir points toward a radical change. When a president wins re-election, he is, quote, the present and future president, end quote, but he is not the president to come. The president to come is a different president. So will the post-COVID universe be just another future or something new to come? It depends not only on science, but on our political decisions. The time has now come to say that we should have no illusions about the happy outcome of the US elections, which brought such relief among liberals all around the world. John Carpenter's They Live, 1988, one of the neglected masterpieces of the Hollywood left, tells the story of John Nada, Spanish for nothing, a homeless laborer who accidentally stumbles upon a pile of boxes full of sunglasses in an abandoned church. When he puts on a pair of these glasses while walking on a street, he notices that a colorful publicity billboard soliciting us to enjoy chocolate bars now simply displays the word obey, while another billboard with a glamorous couple in a tight embrace, seen through the glasses, orders the viewers to marry and reproduce. He also sees that paper money bears the word, "This is your God." Additionally, he soon discovers that many people who look charming are actually monstrous aliens with metal heads. Circulating now on the web is an image that restages this scene from They Live, incorporating Biden and Harris. Seen directly, the image shows the two of them smiling with the message, "Time to heal." But seen through the glasses, they are two alien, heal, H-E-A-L, as in to get better. But seen through the glasses, they are two alien monsters, and the message is time to heal, H-E-E-L, as in. That's the dog command that we used to have for our dog. So we still have for the dog, but yeah. This is, of course, part of the Trump propaganda to discredit Biden and Harris as puppets of anonymous corporate machines that control our lives. But there is more than a grain of truth in it. Biden's victory means a future continuous with the pre-Trump normality. And that's why there was such a sigh of relief after his victory. But this normality means the rule of anonymous global capital, which is the true alien in our midst. I remember from my youth the desire for socialism with a human face against the USSR-type bureaucratic socialism. Biden now promises global capitalism with a human face, while behind the face the same reality will remain. In education, this human face assumes the form of an obsession with well-being, according to which students should live in bubbles that shelter them from the horrors of external reality, protected by politically correct rules. Education is no longer intended to have a sobering effect that allows us to confront social reality. And when we are told that this safety will prevent mental breakdowns, we should counter it with exactly the opposite claim. Such false safety makes us vulnerable to mental crises when we have to eventually confront our social reality. What this focus on well-being does is merely provide a false human face to our reality, instead of enabling us to change this reality itself. Biden is the ultimate well-being president. So why is Biden still better than Trump? Critics point out that Biden also lies and represents big capital, only in a more polite form. But unfortunately, this form matters. With his vulgarization of public speech, Trump was corroding the ethical substance of our lives, what Hegel called Sitten, S-I-T-T-E-N, as opposed to individual morality. This vulgarization is a worldwide process. To give a European example, Szilard Demeter, a ministerial commissioner and head of the Petőfi Literary Museum in Budapest, wrote in an op-ed in November 2020, quote, "Europe is George Soros's gas chamber. Poison gas flows from the capsule of a multicultural open society, which is deadly to the European way of life," end quote. Demeter went on to characterize Soros as, quote, "the liberal Führer, insisting that his libertarian, A-R-Y, like the white race, goddamn, army defies him more than did Hitler's own," end quote. If asked, Demeter would probably dismiss these statements as rhetorical exaggeration, but this in no way dismisses their terrifying implications. The comparison between Soros and Hitler is deeply anti-Semitic. It puts Soros on a level with Hitler, claiming that the multicultural open society promoted by Soros is not only as perilous as the Holocaust and the Aryan racism that sustained it, libertarian, But even worse, excuse me, more perilous to the European way of life. So is there an alternative to this terrifying vision other than Biden's human face? Greta Thunberg recently articulated 3 positive lessons of the pandemic. Quote, "It is possible to treat a crisis like a crisis. It is possible to put people's health above economic interests, and it is possible to listen to science." End quote. Yes, but these are possibilities. It's also possible to treat a crisis in such a way that one uses it to obfuscate other crises. For example, because of the pandemic, we should forget about global warming. It's also possible to use the crisis to make the rich richer and the poor poorer, as happened in 2020 with unprecedented speed. And it's also possible to ignore or compartmentalize science. For example, those who refuse to be vaccinated, the explosive rise of conspiracy theories, etc. Scott Galloway gives a more or less accurate picture of things in our corona time. Quote, "We don't like to say this out loud, but I feel as if the pandemic has largely been invented for taking the top 10% into the top 1% and taking the rest of the 90% downward. We are barreling towards a nation with 3 million lords being served by 350 million serfs. We've decided to protect corporations, not people. Capitalism is literally collapsing on itself unless it rebuilds that pillar of empathy. We've decided that capitalism means being loving and empathetic to corporations, and Darwinist and harsh towards individuals." End quote. So what is Galloway's way out? How should we prevent social collapse? His solution is to put love back into capitalism through a process of creative destruction that lets failing business fail while protecting those who lose their jobs. He explains, quote, "We let people get fired so that Apple can emerge and put Sun Microsystems out of business. And then we take that incredible prosperity and we're more empathetic with people," end quote. The problem is, of course, who is this mysterious we? How exactly is the distribution done? Do we increase taxes on the winners, Apple in this case, while allowing them to maintain their monopolist position? Galloway's idea has a certain dialectical flair. The only way to reduce inequality and poverty is to allow market competition to do its cruel job. We let people get fired. And then what? Do we expect market mechanisms themselves to create new jobs, or the state? How are love and empathy operationalized? Or do we count on the winner's empathy and expect they will all behave like Gates and Buffett? I find the supplementation of market mechanisms by morality, love, and empathy utterly problematic. Instead of enabling us to get the best of both worlds, market egotism and moral empathy, it is much more probable that we'll get the worst of both worlds. The human face of this, quote, leading with transparency, authenticity, and humanity, end quote, is Gates, Bezos, Zuckerberg. The faces of authoritarian corporate capitalism who all pose as humanitarian heroes, as our new aristocracy, celebrated in our media and quoted as wise humanitarians. Gates gives billions to charities, but we should remember how he opposed Elizabeth Warren's plan for a small tax increase. He praised Piketty and once almost proclaimed himself a socialist, which, in a very specific twisted sense, we might say is true. His wealth comes from privatizing what Marx called our commons, our shared social space in which we move and communicate. Gates' wealth has nothing to do with the production costs of the products Microsoft sells. One can even argue that Microsoft pays its intellectual workers a relatively high salary. It is not the result of his success in producing good software for lower prices than his competitors, or in higher exploitation of his hired intellectual workers. Gates became one of the richest men in the world through appropriating the rent from the communication platform, used by millions, that he privatized and controls. And in the same way that Microsoft privatized the communication software used by most of us, Facebook privatized our personal contacts, and Google privatized searching for information. The new mega corporations that emerged through the privatization of commons justify, to some degree at least, the idea that we are witnessing today the rise of neo-feudalism, of feudal capitalism. And by controlling our commons, the new masters, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, act in a way analogous to the feudal masters. To quote Jody Dean, Unlike the capitalist whose profit rests on the surplus value generated by waged workers through the production of commodities, the lord extracts value through monopoly, coercion, and rent. Digital platforms are the new watermills, their billionaire owners the new lords, and their thousands of workers and billions of users the new peasants. End quote. This is how Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, and Google function. We retain the freedom of our personal choice, but the scope of this choice is determined by whichever corporation privatized the particular part of our commons. We search for whatever information we need through Google. We freely determine our public identities through Facebook, etc. These megacorporations try to colonize our future. Gates regularly proposes schemes for organizing our future lives. And even outer space, Musk owns many satellites and plans to build settlements on Mars. There is thus a grain of truth in the Trump rebellion against digital corporate powers. It is worth watching the War Room podcasts of Steve Bannon, the greatest ideologist of Trump's populism. One cannot but be fascinated by how many partial truths he combines into an overall lie. His claim that under Obama, the gap between wealthy and poor grew immensely and big corporations grew stronger is true. But under Trump, this process only continued, in addition to taxes being lowered and money being printed to bail out corporations. We are thus facing a horrible false alternative: a big corporate reset or a nationalist populism which pretends to oppose big corporations but ultimately amounts to the same. The Great Reset is the formula of how to change some things, even many things, in order that things basically remain the same. There's a lot here. We're gonna pause. I'm gonna BRB because I can't do shit on screen. What the fuck? When did I? Okay, well now I just lost it. I don't know how or where, but it's gone. I put it in a place I do not know. Oh, I'm just blind. He was right next to me. I'm just stupid. All right, we're back. coping mechanisms we recognize are not healthy. Yada, yada. Ah. Oh, this is just so crispy. I have a sea salt spray and I don't know if it's actually good for my hair. This feels so dry. This video has had so very little reading and so much of me just talking and the distracted shits. That's why we keep this shit authentic and we don't edit. Because this is real life. We're going to end with The Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Chapter 25. The wonderful Brit. There are, of course, many problems connected with life, of which some of the most popular are: why are people born? Why do they die? Why do they want to spend so much of the intervening time wearing digital watches? Many millions of years ago, a race of hyper-intelligent, pan-dimensional beings, whose physical manifestation of their own pan-dimensional universe is not dissimilar to our own, got so fed up with the constant bickering about the meaning of life, which used to interrupt their favorite pastime of Brocchian ultra cricket, a curious game which involved suddenly hitting people for no readily apparent reason and then running away, that they decided to sit down and solve their problems once and for all. And to this end, they built themselves a stupendous supercomputer which was so amazingly intelligent that even before its databanks had been connected up, it had started from "I think, therefore I am," and got as far as deducing the existence of rice pudding and income tax before anyone managed to turn it off. It was the size of a small city. Its main console was installed in a specially designed executive office, mounted on an enormous executive desk of finest ultra mahogany topped with rich ultra-red leather. The dark carpeting was discreetly sumptuous. Exotic pot plants and tastefully engraved prints of the principal computer programmers and their families were deployed liberally about the room, and stately windows looked out upon a tree-lined public square. On the day of the great on-turning, 2 soberly dressed programmers with briefcases arrived and were shown discreetly into the office. They were aware that this day they would represent their entire race in its greatest moment, but they conducted themselves calmly and quietly as they seated themselves deferentially before the desk, opened their briefcases, and took out their leather-bound notebooks. Their names were Lunkwil and Fook. For a few moments they sat in respectful silence. Then, after exchanging a quiet glance with Fook, Lunkwil leaned forward and touched a small black panel. The subtlest of hums indicated that the massive computer was now in total active mode. After a pause, it spoke to them in a voice rich, resonant, and deep. It said, "What is this great task for which I, Deep Thought, the second greatest computer in the universe of time and space, have been called into existence?" Lunkwil and Fook glanced at each other in surprise. "Your task, O computer," began Fook. "No, wait a minute, this isn't right," said Lunkwil, worried. "We distinctly designed this computer to be the greatest one ever, and we're not making do as second best. Deep Thought," he addressed the computer, "are you not, as we designed you to be, the greatest, most powerful computer in all time?" "I described myself as the second greatest," intoned Deep Thought, "and such I am." Another worried look passed between the 2 programmers. Lunkwil cleared his throat. "There must be some mistake," he said. "Are you not a greater computer than the Milliard Gargantubrain at Maximegalon, which can count all the atoms in a star in a millisecond?" "The Milliard Gargantubrain," said Deep Thought with unconcealed contempt. "A mere abacus. Mention it not." "And are you not," said Fook, leaning anxiously forward, "a greater analyst than the Googleplex Star Thinker in the 7th galaxy of light and ingenuity, which can calculate the trajectory of every single dust particle throughout a 5-week Danglerbred beta sand blizzard?" "A 5-week sand blizzard," said Deep Thought haughtily. "You ask this of me, who have contemplated the very vectors of the atoms in the Big Bang itself? Molest me not with this pocket calculator stuff." The 2 programmers sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then Lunkwil leaned forward again. "But are you not," he said, "a more fiendish disputant than the great hyperlobic omnicognate neutron wrangler of Ciceronicus 12, the magic and indefatigable?" The great hyperlobic omnicognate neutron wrangler, said Deep Thought, thoroughly rolling the R's, could talk all four legs off an Arcturian megadonkey, but only I could persuade it to go for a walk afterward. Then what, asked Fook, is the problem? Then what, asked Fook, is the problem? There is no problem, said Deep Thought with magnificent ringing tones. I am simply the second greatest computer in the universe of space and time. But the second, insisted Lunkwell? Why do you keep saying the second? You're surely not thinking of the multicorticoid perspicutron Titan Muller, are you? Or the Pondermatic? Or the contemptuous lights flashed across the computer's console. I spare not a single unit of thought on these cybernetic simpletons. He boomed. I speak of none but the computer that is to come after me. Fook was losing patience. He pushed his notebook aside and muttered, I think this is getting needlessly messianic. You know nothing of future time, pronounced Deep Thought, and yet in my teeming circuitry I can navigate the infinite delta streams of future probability and see that there must one day come a computer whose merest operational parameters I am not worthy to calculate, but which it will be my fate eventually to design. Fook sighed heavily and glanced across to Lunkwell. Can we get on and ask the question, he said. Lunkwell motioned him to wait. What computer is this of which you speak, he asked. I will speak of it no further in this present time, said Deep Thought. Now, ask what else of me you will, that I may function. Speak. They shrugged at each other. Fook composed himself. O Deep Thought computer, he said, the task we have designed you to perform is this. We want you to tell us, he paused, the answer. The answer, said Deep Thought. The answer to what? Life, urged Fook. The universe, said Lunkwell. Everything, they said in chorus. Deep Thought paused for a moment's reflection. Tricky, he said finally. But can you do it? Again, a significant pause. Yes, said Deep Thought, I can do it. There is an answer, said Fook with breathless excitement. A simple answer, added Lunkwell. Yes, said Deep Thought. Life, the universe, and everything. There is an answer. But, he added, I'll have to think about it. A sudden commotion destroyed the moment. The door flew open and two angry men wearing the coarse faded blue robes and belts of the Crookswan University burst into the room, thrusting aside the ineffectual flunky who tried to bar their way. We demand admission, shouted the younger of the two men, elbowing a pretty young secretary in the throat. Come on, shouted the older one. You can't keep us out. He pushed a junior programmer back through the door. We demand that you can't keep us out, bawled the younger one, though he was now firmly inside the room and no further attempts were being made to stop him. Who are you? Said Lunkwell, rising angrily from his seat. What do you want? I am Magic Thies, announced the older one, and I demand that I am Vroomfondle, shouted the younger one. Magic Thies turned on Vroomfondle. It's all right, he explained angrily. You don't need to demand that. All right, bawled Vroomfondle, banging on a nearby desk. I am Vroomfondle, and that is not a demand, that is a solid fact. What we demand is solid facts. No, we don't, exclaimed Magic Thies in irritation. That is precisely what we don't demand. Scarcely pausing for breath, Vroomfondle shouted, we don't demand solid facts. What we demand is total absence of solid facts. I demand that I may or may not be Vroomfondle. But who the devil are you? Exclaimed an outraged Fook. We, said Magic Thies, are philosophers. Though we may not be, said Vroomfondle, waving a warning finger at the programmers. Yes, we are, insisted Magic Thies. We are quite definitely here as representatives of the amalgamated union of philosophers, sages, luminaries, and other thinking persons. And we want this machine off, and we want it off now. What's the problem? Said Lunkwell. I'll tell you what the problem is, mate, said Magic Thies. Demarcation, that's the problem. We demand, yelled Vroomfondle, that demarcation may or may not be the problem. You just let the machines get on with the adding up, warned Magic Thies, and we'll take care of the eternal verities, thank you very much. You want to check your legal position, you do, mate. Under law, the quest for ultimate truth is quite clearly the inalienable prerogative of your working thinkers. Any bloody machine goes and actually finds it, and we're straight out of a job, aren't we? I mean, what's the use of our sitting up half the night arguing that there may or may not be a god if this machine only goes and gives you his bleeding phone number the next morning? That's right, shouted Vroomfondle. We demand rigidly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty. Suddenly, a Stentorian voice boomed across the room. Stentorian. Might I make an observation at this point? Inquired Deep Thought. We'll go on strike, yelled Vroomfondle. That's right, agreed Magic Thieves. You'll have a national philosopher's strike on your hands. The hum level in the room suddenly increased as several ancillary bass driver units, mounted on incessantly carved and varnished cabinet speakers around the room, cut in to give Deep Thought's voice a little more power. All I wanted to say, bellowed the computer, is that my circuits are now irrevocably committed to calculating the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. He paused and satisfied himself that he now had everyone's attention before continuing more quietly. But the program will take me a little while to run. Fook glanced impatiently at his watch. How long? He asked. He said, 7.5 million years, said Deep Thought. Lunquil and Fook blinked at each other. 7.5 million years, they cried in chorus. Yes, declaimed Deep Thought. I said I'd have to think about it, didn't I? And it occurs to me that running a program like this is bound to create an enormous amount of popular publicity for the whole area of philosophy in general. Everyone's going to have their own theories about what answer I'm eventually going to come up with, and who better to capitalize on that media market than yourselves? So long as you can keep disagreeing with each other violently enough and malaligning each other in the popular press, and so long as you have clever agents, you can keep yourselves on the gravy train for life. How does that sound? The two philosophers gaped at him. Bloody hell, said Magic Thieves. Now that is what I call thinking. Here, Vroomfondle, why do we never think of things like that? Do you know, said Vroomfondle in an odd whisper, think our brains might be too highly trained, Magic Thieves. So saying, they turned on their heels and walked out of the door and into a lifestyle beyond their wildest dreams. Chapter 26. Yes, very salutary, said Arthur after Slartibartfast had related the salient points of the story to him, but I don't understand what all this has got to do with the earth and mice and things. That is but the first half of the story, Earthman, said the old man. If you would care to discover what happened 7.5 million years later, on the great day of the answer, allow me to invite you to my study where you can experience the events yourself on our Senso tape records. That is, unless you would care to take a quick stroll on the surface of New Earth. It's only half completed, I'm afraid. We haven't even finished burying the artificial dinosaur skeletons in the crust yet. Then we have the tertiary and quaternary periods of the Cenozoic area to lay down, and no thank you, said Arthur. It wouldn't be quite the same. No, said Slartibartfast, it won't be. And he turned the air car around and headed back toward the mind-numbing wall. Slartibartfast's study was a total mess, like the results of an explosion in a public library. The old man frowned as they stepped in. Terribly unfortunate, he said. A diode blew in one of the life support computers. When we tried to revive our cleaning staff, we discovered they'd been dead for nearly 30,000 years. Who's going to clear away the bodies? That's what I want to know. Look, why don't you sit yourself down over there and let me plug you in? He gestured Arthur toward a chair which looked as if it had been made out of the ribcage of a stegosaurus. It was made out of the ribcage of a stegosaurus, explained the old man as he pottered about fishing bits of wire out from under tottering piles of paper and drawing instruments. Here, he said, hold these, and passed a couple of stripped wire ends to Arthur. The instant he took hold of them, a bird flew straight through him. He was suspended in midair and totally invisible to himself. Beneath him was a pretty tree-lined city square, and all around it, as far as the eye could see, were white concrete buildings of airy, spacious design, but somewhat the worse for wear. Many were cracked and stained with rain. Today, however, the sun was shining. A fresh breeze danced lightly through the trees, and the odd sensation that all the buildings were quietly humming was probably caused by the fact that the square and all the streets around it were thronged with cheerful, excited people. Somewhere a band was playing, brightly colored flags were fluttering in the breeze, and the spirit of carnival was in the air. Arthur felt extraordinarily lonely stuck up in the air above it all, without so much as a body to his name. But before he had time to reflect on this, a voice rang out across the square and called for everyone's attention. A man standing on a brightly dressed dais before the building, which clearly dominated the square, was addressing the crowd over a tannoy. "O people who wait in the shadow of deep thought," he cried out, "honored descendants of Vroomfondle and Magic Thieves, the greatest and most truly interesting pundits the universe has ever known. The time of waiting is over. Wild cheers broke out among the crowd. Flags, streamers, and wolf whistles sailed through the air. The narrower streets looked rather like centipedes rolling over on their backs, frantically waving their legs in the air. 7.5 million years our race has waited for this great and hopefully enlightening day, cried the cheerleader. The day of the answer. Hurrahs burst from the ecstatic crowd. Never again, cried the man, never again will we wake up in the morning and think, who am I? What is my purpose in life? Does it really, cosmically speaking, matter if I don't get up and go to work? For today we will finally learn once and for all the plain and simple answer to all these nagging little problems of life, the universe, and everything. As the crowd erupted once again, Arthur found himself gliding through the air and down toward one of the large stately windows on the first floor of the building, behind the dais from which the speaker was addressing the crowd. He experienced a moment's panic as he sailed straight toward the window, which passed when a second or so later he found he had gone right through the solid glass without apparently touching it. No one in the room remarked on his peculiar arrival, which is hardly surprising as he wasn't there. He began to realize that the whole experience was merely a recorded projection, which knocked 6-track 70mm into a cocked hat. The room was much as Thardabart Fast had described it. In 7.5 million years, it had been well looked after and cleaned regularly every century or so. The ultra-mahogany desk was worn at the edges, the carpet a little faded now, but the large computer terminal sat in sparkling glory on the desk's leather top, as bright as if it had been constructed yesterday. 2 severely dressed men sat respectfully before the terminal and waited. The time is nearly upon us, said one, and Arthur was surprised to see a word suddenly materialize in thin air just by the man's neck. The word was Lunqual, and it flashed a couple of times and then disappeared again. Before Arthur was able to assimilate this, the other man spoke, and the word Fujk appeared by his neck. 75,000 generations ago, our ancestors set this program in motion, the second man said, and in all that time, we will be the first to hear the computer speak. An awesome prospect, Fujk, agreed the first man, and Arthur suddenly realized he was watching a recording with subtitles. We are the ones who will hear, said Fujk, the answer to the great question of life. The universe, said Lunqual, and everything. Shh, said Lunqual with a slight gesture. I think Deep Thought is preparing to speak. There was a moment's expectant pause while panels slowly came to life on the front of the console. Lights flashed on and off experimentally and settled down into a business-like pattern. A soft, low hum came from the communication channel. Good morning, said Deep Thought at last. Good morning, oh Deep Thought, said Lunqual nervously. Do you have, that is, an answer for you, interrupted Deep Thought majestically. Yes, I have. The 2 men shivered with expectancy. Their waiting had not been in vain. There really is one, breathed Fujk. There really is one, confirmed Deep Thought. To everything? To the greatest question of life, the universe, and everything? Yes. Both of the men had been trained for this moment. Their lives had been a preparation for it. They had been selected at birth as those who would witness the answer, but even so, they found themselves gasping and squirming like excited children. And you're ready to give it to us, urged Lunqual. I am. Now? Now, said Deep Thought. They both licked their dry lips. Though I don't think, added Deep Thought, that you're going to like it. Doesn't matter, said Fujk. We must know it. Now. Now? Inquired Deep Thought. Yes, now. All right, said the computer, and settled into silence again. The 2 men fidgeted. The tension was unbearable. You're really not going to like it, observed Deep Thought. Tell us. All right, said Deep Thought. The answer to the great question, yes, of life, the universe, and everything, said Deep Thought. Yes, is, said Deep Thought and paused. Yes, is, yes? 42, said Deep Thought with infinite majesty and calm. And that is where we shall end. The answer to the great question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. Thanks for sticking with it and bearing through. Y'all were wonderful with my disjointed wanderings. I am so distracted. Work's gonna be so much fun today. Anyways, as always, love you pretty people. Thanks for being here. Thanks for reading. Catch y'all on the flip side. Deuces.